What's up, everyone? My name is Alan, founder and consultant at For Now Marketing, and welcome to Braze for Technical Marketers. Today, let's go over API triggered delivery campaigns. Let's get started. All right, so here we are back in our dashboard, and we have our third delivery type, third and last API triggered delivery. And a lot of times, this is the one that gives a lot of marketers trouble fully comprehending when do we use this? What is this for? What does it even mean? And if you actually come to the campaign page, there's not a lot of things you could do. There's a campaign ID you can copy, and there's a bunch of code that isn't too relevant for our end, for the marketer's end. And then we do have the familiar delivery control setting, which is the same way for all the other same setting for all the other delivery types. But API triggered, and if we go to the Braze documentation, it says API triggered campaigns or server triggered campaigns. So it's a trigger that comes from your server, your company's server, are ideal for more advanced transactional use cases. So think of it this way. A Braze action-based campaign is triggered by the end user who performs the trigger event. A Braze API triggered campaign is determined by your company or by the server when that gets triggered to Braze. And very oftentimes, the server might be programmed to trigger this API call based on a user action, which effectively is very similar to a user performing an action and then triggering this campaign. However, there are many reasons why a company might want to trigger from their backend versus allowing the user to trigger this campaign directly. So that kind of creates like a middle step, the user to the company server and the company server to Braze. One of that could be data points. If we go the API trigger route, we don't actually have to use up any of the data points that a user might incur when triggering a campaign from their end. So we don't have to log a custom event or log a custom attribute or log a session if we go the API triggered route. There's also a little bit more security and ensuring that the API request is made successfully. So that might be another reason why we're going the API triggered route, or for things like a very high volume of trigger, like anything related to orders, transactions could have a high volume of trigger that we don't maybe want to log every single instance in our Braze dashboard. Then API triggered might be the way to go as well. Some more details here on the API triggered setting. The last one being you are able to actually pass in metadata with API trigger as well. So this acts exactly the same as custom event properties. So when a campaign is triggered by action-based, you can actually use some of the metadata or the event properties that come along with it inside your messages, as well as using it as a further filter. And you can do almost all of that, if not all of that, using API triggered campaigns as well. Let's see if there's anything else we missed. Yep, re-eligibility works the same, and API trigger properties. That is how you insert the trigger metadata, trigger property metadata into your messages. More on that in a liquid section in the future. One thing I like about the API triggered page, and I kind of use it as a quick way to find the campaign ID. So in Braze, every campaign or every object in Braze has a unique ID, and that is usually the case in all of software that there's an ID associated with everything. And the best and quickest way to find this campaign's ID before you launch it is to come to the API triggered page, and then right there, you're given the campaign ID right here. And then these instructions are for the developers or for your engineering team to take and understand how can I set up our servers to trigger this campaign when based on the logic that we want to. Go ahead and send them this request. Go ahead and send them this link and then some additional documentation. There is a documentation for triggering the campaign specifically. And then that will be what your development team or engineering team needs to set up this API triggered campaign. So all the messages, all the audiences, the usual visual related things that a marketer is in charge of can still be set from Braze, from the Braze dashboard. But the part that we're handing off to the engineering team is exactly when and how this campaign will be delivered if we choose the API triggered delivery method. And then once again, delivery controls remains the same. If you have any questions, any further questions about the API triggered setup, please let us know in the comments. Also, we'll see if we can show an example or tutorial of how to actually set up an API triggered. And we will use an API call from our end to trigger the campaign that we send so we can get a full example of what that looks like end to end. That's it for today. Thank you for watching and see you next time.